Hello, welcome to The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast, as voted on by us, the hosts of The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast. It's Monday, the 25th of April, 2022. I'm Nick Richardson, and today I'm joined by Peter Burns.
That's me.
And Stephanie Bent-Dixon.
What a surprise.
That's her. Audio viewers, I know this is a terrible way to start a podcast, but Steph, phenomenal jumper.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is my my Destiny Christmas jumper, and I know it's not winter or Christmas, but you know, sometimes when I feel a slight chill, I'm like, oh, it's time. It's time to bust it out.
I love it. I mean, particularly because, like, why should Christmas clothes be just kept for Christmas time?
Well, we don't get to wear Christmas jumpers in Australia because it's always really warm, so it's annoying.
We saw a kid the other day wearing a shirt with anthropomorphized Easter eggs that were having a cute, fun time on the front of the shirt, and it's like, well, you can't wear that ever again. In a year's time, you'll be too big for that shirt. So if you're not wearing it over the next 12 months, this is the only time it got worn.
They might have received it as a grandparent gift that morning. For it. I love it. I feel like we should have more themed clothing. And
but you should be able to represent it throughout the year.
I don't have an Easter outfit, but damn it, I'm going to get one.
Get yourself a bunny.
And I agree. I mean, it's no different than like right now, literally right now, I'm wearing a Daniel Ricciardo McLaren t-shirt. And he's not racing at the moment. Fuck, he barely raced yesterday.
I was about to say he did not do well at all last night.
We were all watching that. But you know, I'll wear this on days that he's not racing. And so maybe Gus, Gus should definitely make themed holiday back pocket gear.
Yeah.
That we can just wear all year round.
But he would also really love that because he loves classic themed, you know, vibes around anything. So yeah,
dressing
he would love
for
that.
The occasion is what Gus loves.
That's what I was going to say. He would be staunchly against wearing it on any other occasion, though.
True.
It would actually make him mad and might make him not make it in the first place because it's like, I know you're not going to wear this on Christmas.
And also,
I would love to
we don't broadcast over Christmas, and we didn't do anything over Easter, so no one would ever see his stuff.
Some back pocket themed Christmas stockings would be really cute. I would love that. That'd be awesome, I think.
We've got PAX Pockety already. We should get a PAX Pockety clothes and then wear them to PAX.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
Oh, I love when we make work for Gus when he's not here. It's one of my favorite things.
Usually it's Paul Will. Paul Will is getting lumped with stuff. But this is an opportunity to let Gus's art shine, and I think he'll appreciate that.
Yeah,
exactly. And speaking of shining, it's very exciting. We've got so many shining members of the community here because lots of people were like, oh, I'm so excited I could watch today, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why are all these people? I forgot it's a public holiday and no one is working.
Yes, true.
So welcome everyone. Glad that you're able to hang out. And Violet Wynn says, "What about a pocket table?" Yeah, that promise has been going for a while. Okay, should we jump into the news? Because it's not going to break itself, guys.
I reckon. Was that a bit? Is that a thing you do every week? You say it's not going to break itself, and then you cut to the thing, and then I just didn't know because I don't do this very often. I'm going to be doing that all the time. I'm so sorry.
It is, and typically he doesn't frame it as a question, so I wasn't quite on the ball.
Yeah,
no, so
okay.
It actually worked out perfectly because you filled the half second while Pete was like finding the button to click. Yep. So everything went great.
Nice.
Next time, don't say anything. Don't point out that you feel like you did something wrong. How about we just agree that if you do something wrong, Pete and I will really let you know about it.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
We'll really let you know about it. The backup is presented by one of our top stitch patrons and the best evil person we know, whoever keeps putting public holidays on a Monday. Who puts public holidays on a Monday? God, it's like people want a 3-day weekend. Ridiculous. Sorry, I mean Evil Spy Boy. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks to your generous Patreon support, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup, and he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 132,000 students at schools across the country, and on top of this, more than 200,000 kids seek food relief from their charities every single month. Donate at foodbank.org.au / and then that's it. There's just a / on the end of a URL sometimes that I don't usually read out that I did. Nightbot has a link in the chat right now, and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more info about Evil Spy Boy's evil proclivities. Let's back up and look at the biggest stories of the week, as voted on by us, the host of the Backup, where we back up and look at the biggest stories of the week. And Steph, you are our guest today. What story made you back up this week and go, hey, that's a pretty big story?
Well, I'm interested in the new Star Wars game that Amy Hennig is working on. So Amy Hennig worked at Naughty Dog for a long time. She helmed the Uncharted games, really solid game developer when it comes to fun, action-adventure storytelling in video game form. And had a project when she moved to EA, I think maybe 2014, 2015, she moved to EA and had a project that was known as Project Ragtag, which was meant to be kind of like a Star Wars heist game set kind of in the wake of the destruction of the Death Star, which was described in a way that made it feel like it had a lot of the Uncharted personality, but set in a Star Wars universe, which sounds amazing. But it kind of then sort of shifted gears and then was like, oh, it's going to be more of an open world thing. And everyone was like, what? And then it kind of crashed and burned. I think maybe EA was kind of going through a lot of drama with the loot box stuff and Battlefront and whatever was, or just EA, yeah, whatever was left of Project Ragtag kind of was lost, which is really sad because people had... It was the most probably original idea that someone had had within a sort of Star Wars universe for a game in a long time, and people were kind of keen to see how that was going to turn out. And now it seems that she has kind of got a new Star Wars project, going on with LucasArts, which is great. And it seems like this maybe has some elements of that original idea in it. I don't think it's going to be exactly the same, but she does have a couple of devs that she was working on that original idea with her on this new project. And I think it's like reasonably okay to hope that we can get some cool original Star Wars, potentially heisty game coming through with this new idea. And I'm excited for her because I feel like her time at EA ended up being a bit of a bust. She didn't really work on anything except for some random shooter.
She was a writer on Battlefield Hardline.
Hardline, that's right, yeah, which kind of was a bit of nothing. So I'd love to see Hardline. I'd love to see her bring some of her her expertise in terms of like bringing characters to life, because that's what the Naughty Dog games do so well. When you're playing a video game, she through her writing brings characters to life in a way that makes them feel really personable and real and fun and layered. And I think that's so important when you're with characters in an adventure. I think the recent Guardians of the Galaxy game is a great example of that. So if we can see a bit more of that in the Star Wars universe in video game form, that would be so great. So I'm excited and optimistic.
Yeah, me too.
Pete, before you jump in, sorry, Battlefield Hardline was actually really good reviewed. I'm thinking of a different Battlefield. You're right. People
every other Battlefield, yeah.
Every other Battlefield campaign.
Sense.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is footage of, and for those who are just listening, you're not looking at this, but we have footage of 1313 up, the demo, another failed demo. Amy Hennig wasn't involved in that, but it was like, it got cancelled, and then it was announced that Amy Hennig was working on something. It was with Visceral, right? It was the Visceral studio that was making it. So there was a lot of big ticks next to, hey, we lost this cool like bounty hunter concept, but Amy Hennig's on board for something that's going to be fun and colorful and action. And we saw this kind of footage that was very Uncharted, and it was exciting that Star Wars was going to potentially have a really action heavy game, as opposed to the good Star Wars games in the past have tended to be the pilot shooters and like, I mean, definitely mixed responses to things like the Jedi Outcast games and stuff like that, which I enjoyed, but they felt they were fine, and they're very old now, so we kind of need a modernization of that.
Yeah, it's described as a narrative-driven action-adventure game this time, featuring an original story. So I feel like those are all boxes that are nice to tick. And to be working with Lucasfilm, I think is on what she's describing as an interactive story, I think is really kind of the important thing to cling to when hoping for the best with this game, because I think obviously action-driven games are great, but it's the stories in Star Wars that I think people really remember. So I hope that, whatever comes out of this is something that allows characters to shine. And I think especially with all of the kind of additional stories that have been told in the Star Wars universe through like animation and TV and stuff like that, people are really wanting to get to know the characters in a way that you can in a video game that you can't in those other mediums. And this is such a great opportunity to do that with Lucasfilm. So I hope it's successful, and I hope we get to hear more about it soon.
I think as well, it's interesting. Star Wars just doesn't have the track record you would expect an IP like Star Wars to have in video games. To me, it's such a slam dunk. It's already basically a video game. It's so much about Star Wars is already a video game. It's shocking that we don't have, or we haven't had regular, incredible Star Wars games. Like Jedi Fallen Order was really good. There's the Lego Star Wars games, but I'm not counting those because they're like Lego.
They're a Lego game with an IP attached.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Knights of the Old Republic was 2003, and Star Wars: The Old Republic, which I love, was 2011. And then you've got like Battlefront, which look great. Star Wars Squadrons look great, but again, they weren't the sort of like the game, like the really capturing everything about Star Wars and being the game that I almost expect there should be a Star Wars game that's almost like Fortnite in size, and there just isn't. But when 1313 was shown, it was actually in 2013, I think. We saw some of that footage. It was around then, and that was just before the next wave of Star Wars movies coming out. So it's almost like there could have been tons of reasons why that game was cancelled, but it's almost like it was slightly ahead of its time. That the whole Star Wars thing has caught up since then with films, the TV shows. Like there's so much Star Wars now, and now that means there's so many Star Wars games in development as well. We've got Star Wars Hunters is like a free-to-play multiplayer game coming to Switch and mobile. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. Respawn are doing a Star Wars first-person shooter. Ubisoft are doing an open-world Star Wars game. There's Star Wars Eclipse, which coming from Quantic Dream, which we thought might be coming in a year or two, and actually isn't coming until like 2027 or something now. Respawn are doing another Star Wars strategy game. Amy Hennig and Skydance are doing the Star Wars game. There's like 8 or 9 things in development at the moment. But this is because of the pedigree of her as a writer, the ability to be able to like mix character and action and fun. This is one that I'm instantly like super, super interested in. And also she hasn't made, like she did Hardline, and then she's credited as a writer on Forspoken, which is terrifying.
Based on the words that we've heard characters in that game say so far.
Like, so she's had 7 years between like a game credit between those two. So hopefully this was just percolating there, and she's just waiting for to strike.
And games are definitely like the most hopeful I am about Star Wars at the moment, with everything like that's come out in the cinematic universe. I'm including the small screen as well as the big screen because you kind of have to now. They're just so trapped in fan service, and it's just so uninteresting. Like the Boba Fett shit, the Mandalorian shit, it's all tied back to the Skywalkers. So it's like
I feel like that's the Marvel effect, right? And I feel like I love superhero stuff enough to want to see all of the films and stuff, but that kind of success and fandom around giving the people, fan service moments is hard to ignore, and it's hard to compete with the Marvel machine unless you're sort of
they are the Marvel machine. It's Disney.
Well, yes, no, I know, but I mean in terms of like the way they're presenting their characters to people and the stories that they're telling and stuff.
Yeah, well,
which is
I think that's totally true. But at the same time, the one thing you got to give credit to Marvel for is they go into their character catalog and pick out people who should never ever have had films made about them or TV shows. Like even Iron Man was not a character that most people knew before Iron Man came out. Like Iron Man was still like a sort of like really? You're making an Iron Man thing? Even though he's an important character in the comics, it's not like he had universal appeal. And that's what Star Wars, I feel like, really needs to do, which is why when we saw the trailer for Star Wars Eclipse, I was really excited for that because I was like, at least this is showing some weird...
Gothic random
totally
planet
culty
somewhere.
side of Star Wars that I've never seen before. So, yeah, hopefully the writing can lift out of the fucking Skywalker bloodline. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Do we know when it's coming out? Like they have, it's like super early, right?
I think it's just that. I think she's just saying that she's working on it, and that, and we just know very basic info. But it's just a kind of a seed to get people excited that it's happening, and that potentially some of the ideas she had from that previous idea will carry over. But I don't think we know much more than that.
Yeah, cool, great. Well, when we do know more, you'll learn it here. Well, you won't learn it here. You'll learn it in another news source, and then we'll talk about it here a couple of days later.
Yeah, we'll play it. We'll play the game. We'll play it.
We'll play the game. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll 100% play the game. Peter, what's on your, what made you back up and go, that's a big story this week?
Rumors are circling that Ubisoft might be in a state where they are looking to sell. According to insider information, Ubisoft is on the cusp of being bought out by a private equity firm. Several equity firms, including Blackstone Incorporated and KKR & Co., no idea who they are, have apparently been studying the business. And while Ubisoft hasn't entered any serious negotiations with potential acquirers, they have been working with outside consultancy firms to audit parts of their business. And there are several reasons to audit your business. One of them would be to be as efficient a business as possible, and the other would be to make yourself look as appealing as possible to potential buyers. We've heard for years the stories of Ubisoft and Guillemot kind of defending the company from a Vivendi takeover.
There'll be a TV show about that.
There's going to be a TV show about it. The most recent block was back in 2018 that they kind of staved off a Vivendi takeover. And back then their share price was $110 a share, and today their shares are just over $38. So they're about 40% of the value that they were back when they were last trying to remain in an independent company. And you know, this is all still rumors, and it's like insider information being circled around, but it's Ubisoft have had very clearly a rough 4 years with lots of delays, lots of negative press, and all very deserved negative press. Obviously, the information came out about all the sexual harassment inside the workplace and just a toxic workplace environment that was never resolved in a satisfactory way. And it's kind of that they're playing the maybe we can just ignore it now that a couple of people have been kicked out. Senior developers have left. Again, big delays on a lot of titles that were getting traction back in 2018. It's not a surprise that their share prices have dropped. They are probably coming around to a point where they're going to potentially find their feet again. But you know, a lot's riding on the next releases to see that they succeed, because if they don't, they're going to be pretty desperate. They announced Project Q overnight, which is a PvP arena game. It kind of leaked, and then they confirmed that it exists. It's not a battle royale; it's like arena fun game mode thing. And they said they don't plan to put NFTs in it. Of course, that was the other thing that they launched, Quartz, which failed hard, and thankfully. And Roller Champs went gold on Friday, I believe. So the code for Roller Champs is locked. So that's, in theory, going to roll out.
It's coming.
Soon.
Oh my gosh!
Going to release.
I can't believe it.
Very exciting. But yes, an interesting position for Ubisoft to be in. I wouldn't say that I've loved the direction the company's gone in the last few years, though. I think that what they've done with Assassin's Creed has been really good. They've got, obviously, Pandora. They've got the Avatar game coming out soon. So there's some pillars on the horizon that I would love to see them hit and be innovative with, but we're all, I think, a little tired of the ubiquity of the design of Ubisoft games across all of their IP. Yeah, maybe a takeover would help them, but I don't think it would. I think it would just get a whole bunch of people kicked out, and they'd be grinding the old Assassin's Creed stone even harder than they currently are.
But is it the kind of takeover that's just like a business takeover that sees somebody else controlling it, but they retain the staff and the people who are in the creative in the same way? Or is it the kind of takeover where they're like, we're changing everything? And so
no, I think that's the interesting thing, that they're not. Then, if this is true, it's an injection of equity into the company that obviously they need to then be, providing value back to the private equity firm, but it's like a cash injection as opposed to
it doesn't seem like,
and we've got a bunch of development support and creative support and platform support. It's really like they want to remain independent. They'll just be owned by a different company.
Yeah, if it's not going to be the kind of thing that sees like sort of sweeping creative changes, then it's hard to imagine how we're going to see like an evolution of the Ubisoft IP. It'd be cool if maybe they took it as an opportunity to shift gears a little bit. But it's also just like Ubisoft has been successful through its sort of big franchises and stuff, and you don't want to mess with that too much, right?
For me, I think that Ubisoft is such a strange company that I feel like they don't have an identity as a game developer, because they do a lot of, they do so many things, and I think I used to know what a Ubisoft game was, and now while I still can tell you like, oh, that's a Ubisoft game, it's not like there's a core creative drive coming from anywhere. It really feels like it's about size and scope and iteration. And then we're seeing footage right now for Mario and Rabbids, which is one of the few really unique things that they've done over the last few years that I think has been really successful at the same time. This is by far my most anticipated Ubisoft title. And they make so many games. And so I think that if they were bought, depending on how much they're bought for and what sort of security they get, it could give them the breathing room to go, okay, who are we? Like, what kind of games do we want to make, as opposed to, because I've heard reports constantly for years that Ubisoft are always just like one failed game away from collapsing, because they put so many of their eggs in the like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Ghost Recon, Tom Clancy basket, that if one of those games doesn't work as expected, it is financially devastating for that company, because they pin so much of their business on those titles. So yeah, it's interesting that they're looking at being bought, particularly because a couple of months ago when there was we saw Bungie, Bethesda, and Activision Blizzard all being bought like in the space of 5 or 6 months. There was that meeting. It was like a quarterly report, shareholders something, with Ubisoft, and the CFO was asked why hasn't Ubisoft accepted an offer to be bought, and he said, we will not speculate on why people would not have made that offer, and then was immediately interrupted by Yves Guillemot, who said, if any offer was made, actually. So basically going like, don't say that no one wants to buy us, we're totally now willing to be bought. And potentially that has paid dividends now.
I hope it would, you're right, give them the breathing room to kind of just rejig their workflow to not be so dependent on the next big title, and give them a bit of flexibility to play in spaces that they want to be creative in. But yeah, I think like a history of seeing tech businesses being taken over, and you're right. I feel like Ubisoft is more of a publisher than a developer, even though that they've consumed development teams across their years of being a publisher and now own those teams, their first party teams. It's like they still operate kind of like a publisher. From an outsider perspective, obviously they have thousands of developers across the globe. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if it gives them anything. But I think it would be that we'd probably see a few Ubisoft studios close down or get kicked out. Particularly the ones that aren't profitable. And the pessimist in me thinks it's more likely that it would just double down into being the Assassin's Creed Far Cry studio, and everything else would get kicked out because it is a waste of effort in trying to make something else work.
And I think that it's hard, like, you're right that I think of them as a publisher as well. They're so big. They're such a big company. And it's like when you hit that scale, you're not just a development team of, 300 people or something. So that even though a company that is just developer, even though Naughty Dog is a first party studio, let's use them as an example, they just go from game to game and continue making the things that they want to make. There's so many people, so much infrastructure at Ubisoft that they need to hit so much money and spread in so many different areas, but they don't have something like, even though they're close to the size of like an Xbox or a Sony or something, what they don't have is like the marketplace. So Xbox is making money every time someone buys a game on their platform. They're making money from microtransactions. Like they're getting income from different places, and Ubisoft is really just they're only getting cash from the games that they put out. So I would not like to run that company. That feels like too much pressure. Because you're this weirdly huge size, but all you do is make video games, and that's a dangerous place to be in. So
and it's forever felt like a family business, even though there's a board, but it's just been the Gilmour family business, and any kind of cutthroat board that kind of gets introduced with to manage the new funding and how the business is going to run after the deal is made for an acquisition or a cash investment is going to look very different to Yves Guillemot at the top doing it for the love of video games.
Totally. Steph, just quickly, you were always, in my head, you were always like the Assassin's Creed person. Are you still the Assassin's Creed person?
I think there's been so many of them, it's hard for me to keep up with them, so I don't think I can legitimately call myself the Assassin's Creed person, given that I've only kind of dipped in and out of the games that have been released. I think the last Assassin's Creed game that I got really super into was probably either Syndicate or Unity, maybe.
Yeah.
And then... yeah, and then I kind of just sort of tried to dip into the others, but it's a much, because they're going more into sort of RPG games now. It feels like it's a part of a much broader landscape. But I think I'm going to stream some more Ragnarok this week because I'm looking to get back into streaming some more single player stuff, and I enjoyed the streams that I had of that. But I don't think I can call myself the Assassin's Creed person anymore for sure, because it's too big and broader thing with too many releases and there's too many games to play. But I still enjoy them, and I like that at least Valhalla kind of is trying to separate itself from the sort of very traditional Assassin's Creed formula slowly. But I'm not sure what the future for that franchise is unless they do something dramatically different, because I mean maybe it's a successful future because they're still just successful games.
I think they're still. I think they have been doing different things, but the different things they've been doing is just like making them bigger and putting more stuff in there. And so, it's hard to do it all. Okay, well, someone will be over to your house shortly to strip you of your title. Okay, and then finally, speaking of crass business moves, the story this week that caught my eye is the report that Microsoft is potentially looking at putting ads inside video games. There was a report. and Sony as well. There was a report coming from Business Insider that Microsoft is building an advertising program to give select brands the ability to buy ads that will appear in free-to-play Xbox games. They say that they want to be careful that they will not, quote, irritate players or disrupt games. But they're working with ad tech companies to create something that will be able to just place them in. At the moment, they're just talking about their free-to-play titles. The ads could appear as digitally rendered billboards in a racing game or an open-world adventure. But I think that that's the beginning of what this could be, and also the safest version of what this could be. I don't know whether or not they're looking at this could be a whole new way to continue to monetize, or if they're like, oh, we actually just want to develop this tech for very select titles to be able to sort of dynamically update billboards in a racing game or a sports game or something. And it's not like it's going to spread to Halo, but at the same time, if there was the money potential there to spread it to something like a Halo, it would be hard for a company to say no to. I feel like the ads in games thing is almost like the Ubisoft buyout thing, where we've been hearing talk about this kind of thing for a while, and sports games are the really obvious. Safe is not necessarily the right word. I guess easiest thing, because part of sport is already so much advertising that is kind of normal to see. We saw EA do some stuff with their UFC games of putting dynamic commercials in there and lots of logos for stuff the commercials were sort of like updating with seasons and changing. But this one coming from Xbox, who particularly with something like Game Pass are looking to put more free-to-play titles on their service, it's I don't know. This one feels to me like I don't want this to happen. I understand for sport games I don't really care, because it almost makes it more authentic to have actual brands there, which is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, I own so much sports merchandise, and I wander around in a Liverpool t-shirt that says Standard and Charter on the front of it. Like, I'm a walking billboard for a company that I don't even care about. But if it came to in Halo, I guess my fear would be that this is successful, and so therefore free-to-play games that Xbox produce become more framed around a esport, like something that is more believable that advertising could exist in. Because I think if you put a billboard in Halo when you're running around, and there's it's an energy drink or it's a candy bar or whatever, that doesn't fit in the universe of Halo. So
totally. Especially if it's something that you and your brain connect to a real world product. It's like it's pulling you out of the lore of the game.
Totally. And so I saw some reporting over the week where people were talking about, like, maybe this is less something in the game and more when you're playing a shooter, the play of the game is brought to you by X. And so, like, some brand presents like a replay or something. But even then, I don't think of free-to-play games as free-to-play. Like, you are monetizing stores. Particularly Game Pass is like, I already have to pay to get access to Game Pass in the first place. I don't want ads in the thing. I think is kind of where I'm falling down on.
To me,
sorry, Steph, go.
No. I was like, to me, the only place where it would work, because we're kind of seeing it already in a way that we don't necessarily connect, is in something like Fortnite, where, when they introduce the Spider-Man stuff, that's effectively advertising Spider-Man. I understand that that's a pop culture crossover that is something that happens in games because people love those characters. But they time it strategically, and I think also when you look at the sort of musical collaborations with like Ariana Grande and the other guy, Travis Scott. You could I can see events like that including more advertising or having more of a product focus where people kind of can opt into it if they want to, and it does a media cycle and it's a thing, but it's not really affecting the core of the game or people's experience of the games that they're playing so much. I can see it kind of in the least offensive way, because Fortnite is already such a ridiculous, fourth wall breaking like a hodgepodge of ideas.
I mean, Fortnite is basically just a commercial, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There are so many brands in that game already.
I can see it working in that game and in games that are like that, which I'm sure we'll end up with more going forward into the future. But when you have like a beloved IP like a Halo or a Star Wars or whatever, to have random ads in that would just be really awful.
Yeah,
so
you can't break fantasy.
Yeah, you can't break fantasy for sure. So I think there's totally places where it could work in a way that it will make us groan the least. But I think I would like to hope that
Patronus.
Kaspersky, probably. they'll be smart enough not to put them in places that would really upset people or break or pull you out of the magic of the world itself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously no one wants to see it. No gamer wants to see it. But we are, as gamers, and these are just free-to-play games, we're constantly upset by any, like, this generation of games went to $110 RRP in Australia, or 120 RRP in Australia, as opposed to the 100 or whatever that it's been in the past. And you never have to pay that. You always get a JB Hi-Fi deal for $79 on day one or whatever. But it's games are getting more expensive to make, to ship around the world if they are doing physical media. They're just more expensive. So and inflation. So we're gonna have to we will be paying more for things, or companies are going to find other ways to make revenue, and free-to-play has been a way that's happened. But free-to-play and microtransaction stuff is pretty successful. It is very successful on mobile. But mobile also has advertising. So I wonder if that's the model that they're looking at and going, mobile free-to-play games, it's like, I just Googled it. In 2021, it was a in 2020 it was a $73.8 billion market, free to play mobile games market across the globe. That's a lot of billions. You could buy a Activision Blizzard for that.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously there are I believe that this statistic includes microtransactions, but I would like to know what portion of that is from advertising. And if it's any kind of significant portion, I could see why companies like Microsoft and Sony are looking at how do we advertise in our free-to-play games. And there's no way to win with gamers as well, but we don't want to pay money. Everyone wants everything for free and they want it to be perfect. So people get the shits with microtransactions if they feel like they're not priced properly, or if they're not good enough quality things. And it's like, you got the game for free, you can play it for free. Just don't buy the fucking hat if you don't like it. And someone who likes the game is willing to spend more money to keep this thing that you're enjoying afloat. It's, we can't have our cake and eat it too. But I think that Microsoft and Sony would learn quickly where they're fucking up if they start putting advertising in games like Uncharted. Though Uncharted could have billboards.
Well, I mean, true. I mean, they have said that, like you said, it's for free to play, so it could be Uncharted multiplayer. Exactly. They do. You're totally right as well. Like, I think for me, it's just the thing that because one of the reasons that was stated that they're doing this is that kids are not watching commercial television. So they're not actually being exposed to advertising. Tons of them have ad blockers on the internet. So they get sponsored content from people that they watch, but they don't just get incidental ads for things, which we grew up so used to. Microsoft has said that, interestingly, they don't want to take a cut of the money that they're having here. They want it to go all to developers so that they can continue making free-to-play games, so that it basically incentivizes more people to make games, because it's like, oh, here's a way that you can monetize on our platform, and we're not going to take a cut of it. We're just going to help you implement that, which is interesting. I think that the biggest thing is just Yeah, it's just about, I guess, how it's implemented. They're really worried that they've said in this report, they said that they're taking it really slowly because they know if we fuck it up at the beginning, it's dead on arrival. Like there's no way you can turn that around. So they're going to step really cautiously. But I think this is something like the Monster Energy drink thing in Death Stranding, and just how that I was so fucking confused by that thing, and it just ripped me out of the game so hard because I was just like, what is this? And it's the same as in a TV show. Like if you watch the Apple TV Plus shows, whenever they look at their watch or take out their phone and the shot is on there for a weird amount of time, I'm pulled out of it, at least with commercials. Even though I hate commercials, it's like separate from the art. And then when you start putting the commercials in the thing, then it starts pulling you out of the world. So I guess that's my number one thing. I totally take the point that like, you need to pay for shit somehow, but also I never want to pay for anything. And so that is stupid. But yeah, I look at it as one of the most high profile. That Monster Energy thing is the most high profile ad in something that you don't associate as having ads like a sports game. I still think about it as just like, that was such a weird fucking decision. And it's not
a weird
in the direct
decision game.
Totally.
In a game full of weird decisions. It was Monster Energy drink that you were like, what the fuck is that?
And the Monster Energy drink thing is not in the director's cut. So either they went,
they cheaped out on the
want
package.
To be fucking involved in this game because what the hell is this? Or it was just this like limited run, and they've gone, okay, well, for this next version, if you're not going to pay us, we're not going to put your thing in there. And now it's just some like in-world energy drink. And so I'm like, I think
it's more likely the latter. I think it was like they only bought into a certain dollar amount, so that like you can be in it for this amount, but going forward it's going to be genericized so that you don't appear ever again, and you've been removed now from the story,
from the art.
Yeah. In the art.
Which is then pulling you out of it twice, I guess, if you're aware of that kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah. Anything that just pulls you out of it, that's the weird stuff for me. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I think that I have to put faith in Xbox because I feel like they have made so many good steps over the last few years. Like under current leadership, under like Phil Spencer's guide, they seem to be making so many correct decisions that they don't want to mess this up and turn people off their stuff. So we'll see what happens. But we may start seeing billboards for something in a game where you're like, well, that doesn't belong there at all. And and then rounding out, a couple of announcements came out over the course of the week. We got the announcement for the new World of Warcraft Dragonflight expansion, which I've seen a ton of World of Warcraft people really excited for. I haven't played WoW in years. I cannot believe that WoW is still going. It is astonishing that game is not only still being played, but is having new content come out. So lots of WoW people super excited for Dragonflight.
I mean, all of their like announcement cinematics are always like, I should play WoW, and then I look at footage of WoW and I'm like, I'm not playing that game. Totally, but like, and Blizzard are the masters of the cinematic, have been forever. So this is just gorgeous, and the promise of what this is as an MMO is so much greater than the sum of that engine.
100. Like, imagine if they made a WoW. Like, if they did make WoW 2, if they did make the sequel, if it didn't turn into Overwatch, like what they could do now. Because that thing is so old, and it is still in so many ways the original game. It's shocking.
I'd love to see more in the way of like, based on the fact that I enjoyed the Arcane animated series so much with no love or affection for League of Legends. I would love to see like a cool animated World of Warcraft thing on Netflix. I mean, it would be very expensive to make it to the caliber of their cinematics, but I don't know, because then I feel like I could ingest some WoW lore and story and understand a bit of what WoW fans love about it without having to play their like ugly game.
And Duncan Jones isn't invited either.
Because that Warcraft film was not it.
No,
that was not it.
It was not
it, guys. And then the other thing we got, which I'm super excited about, Gearbox announced a new Tales from the Borderlands game is coming in 2022. So this year we're going to get a new Tales from the Borderlands. I loved. That was my favorite of the
I think it's everyone's favorite
sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get a sequel to that. Hopefully it lives up to the incredible work that came before it. So that's something to look forward to. All right, that is literally all the video game news they have this week. There's nothing else you need to know.